Morning. My name is Kirk Hobrecht. I am the Director of Communications and Public Affairs for the Kentucky National Guard, and by far I have the best job in the county. I love what I do, and I want to talk a little bit about what it is that we do and who we do it for. But first and foremost, as we get into the world of public affairs, a couple things to note. And these are, again, the things I'll be talking about. The social media landscape, the good, the bad, the oh my gosh, and then we'll go ahead and dive right on in and make sure that we have some takeaways. And over the next 20 minutes, all I can say is strap in, put your arms up, and enjoy the ride. The way we kind of frame ourselves is we are the voice of the Kentucky National Guard. So anybody who happens to be working with the Guard, wearing the uniform, what have you, they're our representatives. And so my job and our staff's job is to make sure that we echo that to everything that we do, with every click, with every video, with every mantra. It's always in everything that we broadcast. Some of the things that are so important, though, and we heard Cynthia and Michelle talk about that, is transparency. Without a doubt, it takes 2 nanoseconds. We're talking about the time when you stub your toe coming out of going into your house to by the time that reaches your brain. That's how long it takes for somebody to sense whether or not you're full of it or not. Are you authentic or are you real? And my job is to make sure that everything that we transmit is legit. So when we transmit, it's legit. And I heard you talking about being that sole source, or in one of your posts talking about you're a credible outlet. You have to earn that. And it doesn't take much to screw that up. I think you would agree. If you say something that's kind of fake or not true, by goodness, you know it. And so we have to be transparent. And again, we also live by the mantra of maximum disclosure, minimum delay. What that means is good news, we share it as quickly as we can. Same with bad news. If I don't have all the answers, I'm not going to tell everybody, hey, we're kind of messed up. I'll say, can you wait for a moment so we can get all the facts? But I can't hold that bad news any longer than I need to. And sometimes, as we'll show some examples, that can be to our benefit. And again, we have to be honest brokers. Sometimes what we have to talk about is not pleasant. It's not the most favorable action. It may not be the most, I'll be, again, transparent. We have some folks who are currently in Senegal. That is a Ebola virus disease-free zone. But when these service members come back, they're going to be coming back to a demographic that does not understand Ebola and is considering them to be disease infected. My job is to make sure that everybody understands, to the best of our ability, what the real story is. And I promise you that is a challenge. But we are that honest broker, and we always find ways to live by these mantras. Okay, so this is a quick story here. When you read Ship Sinks Today, this could, at one point, if you're in Boston or maybe even New York, would send out Coast Guard folks to take care of a ship. But the reality of it is, I might have been somebody working for Home Depot asking my distribution manager to ship the sinks today. So the whole point here is perception is not always reality. Sometimes when you think you're doing well, you never really know what's in your six. Okay, you never know what's in your back door. So you always have to be cognizant of that. I'm sharing something with you, and we're going to have a chance to talk about this after, or you can talk to me offline. But this part of the brief is talking about guidelines. As you heard about, how do you discern between reality, notional, exercise, what have you? Well, how do I know if what I'm seeing online or in an email is real? Is it something that I should respond to? Well, what I'm showing you here, and you can't read it for a reason, is the Kentucky National Guard Commander's Critical Information Report. Now, the reason why we put it in hieroglyphics is this information is so important for our command. We don't want the other folks, the hackers, and believe you me, if you have, you've been hearing more and more about hacking, you've been hearing about other people using information against us. This is unclassified, however, it is for official use only, and it's that important that we don't want to share this with everybody, okay? We would share with our friends here, but because we are webcasting it, we had to actually put a little bit of a mask on this. Bottom line is, we have certain criteria that discern whether that information connected could be a bad report, a bad day, or something we need to jump on immediately. We call them RATs. That's information that is relevant, accurate, and timely. So if you remember that acronym RAT, that's how we look at everything. When we got that tweet, when we got that email, was that something that fits those criteria? Is this something that we need to respond to? And believe you me, this does not just have to deal with floods or disasters or anything that you would consider you need to call out the guard for. This also includes suicide. This also includes threats. This also includes things that are more subtle, yet the implication is dire. We've often taken emails or phone calls and realized, or even Facebook postings for that matter, and realized somebody really needed help now. And because our guard family is extensive, our guard nation, to extend that circle, we jump on that. So that's how we look at information. Is it relevant, accurate, and timely? And we jump on it as quickly as we can. And we use the criteria that I just showed that I couldn't show you to actually discern what do we do with that information. And we share that as quickly as possible. Also, again, things to watch out for is when you are analyzing the information, when we're quickly reading those 146 characters from a tweet or a Facebook posting or what have you, what exactly is being said and who's saying it and how. So again, we look at and we continue to learn from each other and continually to morph into a, hey, when you see this kind of thing, you need to act on it. Or to our folks that work in the social, not only the social media realm, but also the social welfare or the social benefit realm, be looking for these things. And we often learn from each other. Things that may not be considered a problem text really can be. And then we reach out. And it's always okay to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you didn't need help, but just know that I read what you wrote. And I wanted you to know it was important. So that's, again, how we use that, not just for crisis stuff, but, again, a personal crisis can be just as devastating to any family. And, again, we have guidelines to follow. And at any time, I can share that. I'll share them with Mr. Dossett. I know Mr. Dossett has them because he's in the EOC, but I'll make sure that if anybody needs a refresher course, we'll do that someplace where we know it's not being broadcast. And because, again, that information is very, very important. It's not just for the welfare of our individuals. It's also for the welfare of our Commonwealth and nation. Okay, but here's another thing that I wanted to talk about. And I know this is kind of an exercise that's a little bit early in the morning. It's only 9:55, but I'd like you to repeat after me because this way I'll know for sure you're listening, okay? You are what you post.
You are what you post.
One more time. You are what you post.
You are what you post.
That is probably the most important thing you can realize and you can remember. And honestly, I'm not really talking to you all as much as I am your kids and your grandkids, your nephews and nieces. They forget that part. When they transmit it, it's gone. And today there's litigation, there's laws, there's actually policies out there that can get a young kid incarcerated, a misdemeanor for sending a picture of his sweetheart scantily clad to another person. That could get you in that much trouble. And so what I'm going to talk about is some of the pitfalls and some of the things we could do to avoid them. Okay, Specialist Sheffley, wonderful person who had a great career ahead of her. She was using Instagram in this case, and unfortunately she thought she was being an artful dodger. Somebody was having making fun at the fact that at 1700 or at 5 o'clock every evening in Fort Carson, Colorado, the flag comes down. Out of respect, you stand at attention, you salute. She was dodging that activity, leaning back in her car, taking a selfie of herself, saying, hey, look at me, I don't care what you think, but bottom line is I'm not part of that process. I'm not doing that. Well, she's no longer in the military. And you would say to yourself, well, that's kind of harsh for that to have happened. It wasn't because of her offense that got her kicked out. It was the death threats. It was the fact that she was a known commodity even though she was in Colorado and everybody can smoke non-hemp in that area, this was actually because of the threats that she got from people who didn't understand what she was trying to say. Because again, you do not control the content once it's out there or how it's being interpreted. That was an extremely bad day, and I will because I have studied this case, I can say that she was an outstanding service member. Unfortunately, she's no longer in the service because of this one posting. You may have heard of this one. This is where specialists from Wisconsin National Guard, along with other folks, were going through some training. And the training was to do military honors. And this is probably the least honorable thing that they could ever have done, which is basically on the, these were trainees getting ready to learn how to do the services that they needed to. And if you can barely read the caption, it says, "We put the fun in funeral. Your fearless honor guard from various states." Each and every one of these persons were dismissed. And this one, again, was not because of the death threats. This was because, in most cases, these young enlisted and even one or two officers that were involved in this were having a bad day, and their lack of judgment and character got them dismissed. Okay, and again, because of the way the world is today, we now have uniform codes of military justice and the Kentucky military justice that guide us. And the things that are pertain to when you're in a bar scene or you're in a forum like this also pertain to the internet. It just happens to be a bigger bar and a bigger audience. So again, things to remember, the things that guide you today in your handbooks, in your team notes of what you're supposed to do as conduct in the office pertain here too. And again, those two examples that I just showed you of people getting expelled or dismissed from the military service are testament to the same. Okay, and again, general takeaways also. I'm going to show you two more examples of that. Just don't vent on the social media outlets. Again, it's forever. You are what you post. So remember that if you need to take a break and somebody just gave you a scathing review or they said something derogatory on your Facebook posting and you happen to be the administrator of that, let it go. It doesn't matter. It's not worth it. Give yourself the 24-hour timeout. I used to have this with my business partner when I was a traditional guard member, that we'd always say at the worst of ourselves, get a break. We don't discuss it for another 24 hours. Boop, you're done. Go home, do whatever you need to. Why? Because once you post it, it's out there forever. And then now you have this thread. You heard the term thread. You actually have that in pixel, in writing, can be used against you in a court of law. I'm not kidding. So just don't fall prey to that. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Walk away, take a walk, have a good time, walk your dog. Do not respond to something egregious on the line. It's not worth it. We also have, and I'm going to show you at the very end of this, where you can actually find a handbook that not only the Army uses, but I'm in the Air Force, we use it. Other organizations use it too. We have a lot of folks that were paid a lot of money to help them, Uncle Sam, figure out the right way of doing things, whether it be Twitter, RSS feeds, Facebook, and the like. And so again, I encourage you to take a look at the social media handbook. It's updated. Literally, it's updated once. It's updated once every 3 months or once a quarter. Okay, another thing to bear in mind too is because you are what you post, you are also where you post. And many of us aren't aware that in our smartphones that are sometimes smarter than us, they often give us our location of where we are. And when you have a geotag, I saw geotagging mentioned before, when you post something, that's where you are. Well, guess where you're not? You're not at home. So when you're on vacations and you're taking pictures of you and your loved ones in your Sunday bests or on the beaches, you're not at home. And that's something to bear in mind too. As we've all heard the worst stories of people who are at funerals being robbed because somebody is looking at the want ads of where I can rob. They're looking at the obituary section, knowing when the funeral is going to be. The same thing happens with Facebook. If you're showing me your wonderful 2-week vacation in Barcelona, those that are fortunate to go to Spain before they strike, hey, well, guess what? You're not home. And so I wonder if those are automatic lights that are coming on, or you actually have a house sitter. Either way, I'm going to find out and possibly exploit you. So again, you want to make sure that you don't fall prey to that. So just use common sense. Here's another one. I talked a little bit about don't vent online. Well, this is somebody who actually vented, saw the venting online and found out that his wife was cheating on him. And there on base at one time was a red spray paint saying, "Stop, don't email my wife anymore." So again, when you think you are being protective or you're being cute or being coy, you're not, okay? Again, I'll tell on ourselves here. You all remember General Petraeus, whose marriage was kind of put out in the public for everybody to read about how he and his wife were having issues, and basically he had a relationship with his publicist. What he was doing, because he thought he was so smart, was he was making sure that there was no email trail. So what he did was he gave his cutie pie in the sandbox, or in the sand, overseas, he gave her access to his email. And what he had done was he put inside the back of his, or what he was doing was he was saving draft emails talking about when they could hook up. So it was never being transmitted, but it was in his draft email box. Well, guess what? Draft email boxes are also being backed up, and that's how they found the connection between the two of them. So if you think you're really, really, really smart, you can get away with something stupid, I promise you there's a 12-year-old that can hack into your email and figure it out. Okay. All right, know your privacy settings. I created this slide maybe 3 months ago. It's already out of date. Why? Because Facebook, in its infinite wisdom and its infinite expansion to take over the world along with Starbucks and Walmart's, they are changing their policies all the time. But the biggest thing that you can know is no matter what happens, the only thing that you own on Facebook is the repercussions of what you post on Facebook. Why? Because Facebook owns everything else. If you remember when you first set up a Facebook, now don't be scared of that. Just know it's kind of like any kind of weapon. This is your trigger figure. This is your safety. Just make sure that you know when you're being safe, and just always be safe. But in this case, though, the privacy settings change all the time. And so what you think is private, or in the case of the military, when you think the other bad guys aren't looking at that because you have a closed group and you've said, I don't want the countries of this, that, and the other to see it, come on. It doesn't work that way. There's always a way in, so just know that somebody's going to see it if you post it, and you're going to be responsible for it. So just bear that in mind. Again, a resource that you can use, Google Army Social Media Guide. It changes all the time. It's always up to date. When you Google that, you're going to be given a plethora of the do's and the don'ts, what you should do, what you should not have to do, and also what you should know. And again, if you have any questions, this is who I am. This is my email. And again, I appreciate your time.